Imagine you are sailing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The weather is calm. The sea is quiet. Then in the distance you spot another ship. At first, nothing seems unusual. Ships pass each other all the time. But as you get closer, something feels wrong. The ship is drifting. Its sails are still up, but there is no movement on deck, no crew, no captain. You call out, but no one answers. When you finally board the ship, everything is still there. The cargo is untouched. Food and water remain. Personal belongings are exactly where they should be. It looks like the crew simply stood up and disappeared. This is not a story. This actually happened in 1872, and to this day, no one knows why. The ship was called the Mary Celeste. It was a merchant vessel designed to carry goods across long distances. It wasn't particularly famous, and it wasn't considered special in any way. But what happened to it would make it one of the most mysterious ships in history. In November of 1872, the Mary Celeste left New York Harbor, heading toward Genoa, Italy. On board were 10 people. The captain, Benjamin Briggs, was a highly experienced sailor. He had spent years at sea and was known for being reliable and cautious. This was not someone who would take unnecessary risks. Traveling with him were his wife, Sarah, and their young daughter, Sophia. This alone shows how confident he was in the journey. Captains did not usually bring their families on dangerous voyages. The rest of the crew consisted of 7 men, all selected carefully. They were skilled, disciplined, and had experience working on similar ships. There were no known conflicts among them. Nothing suggested tension or instability. The cargo they carried was over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. It was a valuable shipment, but also somewhat risky under certain conditions. Still, this was not unusual for merchant ships at the time. The weather reports were normal. The ship was in good condition. Everything about the voyage suggested a routine journey. There was no reason to expect anything unusual would happen. But something did happen. On December 4th, 1872, a ship called the Dei Gratia spotted the Mary Celeste drifting in the Atlantic Ocean. At first, the crew of the Dei Gratia assumed it was just another passing vessel. But as they got closer, they noticed something strange. The Mary Celeste was not following a steady course. It seemed to be drifting without direction. Its sails were still partially set, catching the wind. But there was no control. More importantly, there was no visible crew, no one on deck, no one responding to signals. This was highly unusual. Ships did not just drift silently without anyone on board. The captain of the Dei Gratia became concerned. He ordered a small group of men to board the ship and investigate. As they stepped onto the Mary Celeste, the mystery deepened immediately. The ship was empty, completely abandoned. No captain, no crew, no passengers, just silence. But what made the situation even more disturbing was the condition of the ship itself. It was not wrecked. It was not destroyed. It was still capable of sailing. As the boarding team explored the ship, they began to notice details that made the situation even more confusing. The cargo was still there. Every barrel of alcohol remained untouched. There was no sign of theft. The crew's personal belongings were still in place. Clothing, tools, and equipment had not been disturbed. Even the captain's navigation instruments were still on board. Food and water supplies were still available in large quantities. There was no sign that the crew had been starving or desperate. There were no signs of violence, no blood, no broken structures, no evidence of a struggle. The ship did have some minor damage. There was a small amount of water in the hold, but not enough to sink the ship. It was still seaworthy. The last logbook entry was dated about 10 days earlier. After that, there was nothing. One detail stood out more than anything else. The lifeboat was missing. This suggested that the crew had not been taken by force. They had left the ship themselves. But why would an experienced captain abandon a ship that was still functional? Over the years, many explanations have been proposed, but none of them fully explain what happened. One of the earliest ideas was piracy, but this quickly proved unlikely. Pirates would not leave valuable cargo behind. Nothing had been stolen. Another theory was mutiny. Perhaps the crew turned against the captain, but there was no evidence of conflict. Everything on the ship suggested order, not chaos. A more convincing theory involves the cargo itself. Industrial alcohol can release fumes, especially if some barrels begin to leak. These fumes can be dangerous and potentially explosive. It is possible that the crew detected a strong smell and feared an explosion. In that moment, they may have decided to leave the ship temporarily. They could have boarded the lifeboat, planning to stay nearby until the danger passed. But something may have gone wrong. The rope connecting them to the ship could have snapped. A sudden shift in weather could have pushed them away. Once separated, they would have had no way to return. Other theories suggest natural events, such as a sudden wave or water spout. But again, there is no clear evidence. Every explanation leaves questions unanswered, and that is what makes this case so fascinating. The Mary Celeste was eventually brought to shore. An investigation was conducted, but no conclusion was ever reached. The fate of the crew remains unknown. A fully functional ship, abandoned in the middle of the ocean, with no clear reason. And more than 150 years later, the mystery remains unsolved.